In this video, we're going to go through adding a simple rig to the example that we were setting up last time. If I hit process, I can rebuild what we did last time. So here's my asset brought together with skin weights. Now I want to have some controls for this setup, so I'll go here and do new Python code and rename this rig arm. I want this to happen before the skin weighting comes in, so I'll just move it up here by clicking and dragging, and I'll turn this on. So if I run it now, nothing's going to happen because I haven't really defined my rig yet. So Vitala has some classes for dealing with building a rig. So I want to import a module that will help me with that. So let's do from vtool.maya lib import rigs. So in rigs, I have a bunch of different classes to deal with building an asset. In this case, I'm just going to do an FK rig. So if I do this again, FK rig, it's asking for a name and a side. I'm going to call this arm, and the side is going to be the center, C. Sides can be C, L, or R for now. Rig equals rigs.fkrig. So I have to assign it to a variable so that I can set some things on the class before I run it. So the first thing I want to do after I assign it to a variable is I want to get my joints assigned to a variable. So I do joints equals commands.ls, and I'll say joint underscore star. So this will give me, and just to be careful, I'll do type equals joint. This will give me the joints that are being used to rig this character. In this case, I only have 3 joints in my scene, so joints is really easy to define. If I were to have other joints in the scene, I would probably want to do something more like joint arm, joint elbow, joint wrist. So define them by hand. And then actually I'll keep that because it's a little bit clearer. So here's joints. So I want to feed that into my rig. So I'll save this first, and I'll go rig.set joints. And it's given me joints because that's how I've defined it in the code, and I've defined it here the same way. But this could be anything, so I could say joints arm, and this could be joints arm. So after I've set the joints, I can go rig.create and hit save. And this will create my rig. So if I hit process now, it's gone in and created 3 controls. And so now I want to start customizing this rig a little bit and making it more to my liking. So the first thing is I don't really want this control at the end. So what I do here is I just don't feed it into the setup. So I'll do from the start to the space before the last joint. So doing that will skip the last joint. So if I go here, and now it's doing only the first 2 joints. Now the other thing is I'd like it to be aligned to a different axis. So in here I have rig.set control offset axis, and in this case it's probably Z. And process this. Yeah, so now my joints are building around there. I could do some, if I did a different axis just to show what would happen, I'll do Y. Now it's back to where it was, and I could do X, and it'll be pointing on a different direction. So yeah, it's basically the axis of these arrows is what it will offset around. So it's a bit hard to understand, but in this case we just want Z. What else can we do? We can set some subcontrols on this. So rig.set sub set create subcontrols, and we'll set it to true. Process this, yes. And by default, my subcontrols are off. But there they are. But I can make it so that by default the subcontrols come in. So set subcontrol, set sub visibility, and I'm going to set it to true. So now I can see all my subcontrols, which can be useful if I'm having to position everything. And I'm going to actually not do subcontrols for this test, and I'll just leave it like that. Now, I could also, well, no, I won't do that now. Yeah, so I have a rig, and I want to start customizing these controls a little bit. So let's say I have, let's change this to set control shape, and let's give it a square. So now they come in as squares. Okay, so I've gone about as far as I want to go at this stage. So now I want to go to my data, and I can start defining things with export control CVs and control colors. So I'll start with add control CVs. Now the first thing I want to do here is I want to make this a little bit bigger, and maybe I want to make this a circle instead of a square. So let's go here into the controls, and basically I need to replace this shape node, or this shape node, if I'm going to make that into a circle. So first off, I will go here and create a circle. I will freeze it, apply, delete history. So now I should be able to add that circle in. So I'll select the shape node, I'll select this node, and I'll do parent relative, parent relative -s. Okay, so it's added that shape in. Delete this one, can delete this one, and I can now edit the shape to be more the way I want. So I can go here and rotate that on Z, and I can even change its color. So I can go here, object display, drawing overrides, enable override, and I'll make it red. So here's my rig, and so now I want to start saving out these changes. The first thing I should do is save a WIP, just in case the exporting doesn't do what I think it should. And so now I'm going to export my control CVs, and I'm going to add color data, and I'm going to export my control colors. I don't have to have anything selected for those. It just looks at the scene and finds any controls and any and the control color of the curves. So again, I'll save this as a WIP just to make sure, and now I can start bringing in my data over here. So I'm going to do a new data import. I'm going to bring in my control CVs, and I'm going to bring in my control colors, and I'll turn those on and hit process. Yeah. So it's gone through, it's added that control, changed the colors, made it into a circle, and so now I'm starting to have a finished rig. This one, if you look at the attribute editor, under extra attributes on the CNT, there is curve type. So word of caution, if you're going to change this back to something or to something else, save, and then I run this, it's going to apply the color, but it's not going to switch it to a circle anymore. So you've lost that little bit of custom editing that you've done, and it's just because this has been changed. But if I change this back to a square, now it's got the circle again. So the way that works is it looks at the control type when it's importing the curve data, and if it has a different curve type, it doesn't import any custom data as far as control shape goes. So any custom stuff that you've edited here, it won't bring that back in. So as soon as this changes to a cube, that's lost. But if you change it back to a square, it'll bring in that custom data again. And that's just so that if you edit it in the code, it updates, so that you're not stuck with a circle if you want it to really be a cube. So there's some problems here with how this is organized. I want my controls to go under a control group, and I want my setup to go under a setup under the setup group. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'll do a new Python code, rename it, and this will be setup scene or setup rig. I'll just call it rig, and I'll put this up here, and I'm going to go in here and define my top group. So commands.group empty equals true, name equals controls, commands.group empty equals true, name equals rig. So this will create two groups, controls and rig, that I can parent stuff under. Now I'm going to run this just to see if it's doing what I want. You'll notice here that I didn't have to import commands. Commands is defined automatically, just like process. So process is something that's defined automatically. So too is commands. And if I go here, here's my rig group, here's my controls group. So I'm going to parent commands.parent. I'll parent rig under setup. Actually, I'll parent setup under rig. And process it again. So now rig has setup, and I want to get setup arm under there. So there's some defined ways to do that through the rig class. So after it builds, you can do rig.set setup parent, and then you just give it basically I want to put it under rig, and let's build that and see what it does. Yeah, so now under rig I have setup arm, and my controls, I want to put it under the controls, so rig.set control parent, and that's going to be controls. So I'll hit process, and here's my controls with my controls arm, and here's my rig with my setup arm 1C. everything's deforming. So in my next video, I'm going to look at how to add pose deformation to this setup and get it exporting and importing.